Hello and welcome back to what I wished I'd known about self-publishing before I got started. My name is Karlie with Dragon Key Press, and today I want to talk about your author website. Now, as a self-published author, you will need to make a website of some kind, have some kind of presence out there, not only for people to be able to find you, but to actually help with your promotion and marketing abilities. This is one of the things that pretty much anybody out there actually agrees upon, and if you're traditional published, a lot of the traditional houses will help you out with at least some kind of online presence, a web page that's part of their big, huge umbrella. But if you're totally independent like I am, you have to go out and actually make your own. Now, there are a lot of aspects that need to be taken into consideration when delving into the whole thing of getting your own website. Do you have the money to actually fund this? And do you have any kind of savvy at all on how to program any of this? A lot of that's going to determine what kind of options you have available. If you have no savvy with computer and internet whatsoever, I suggest getting a source like Vistaprint, because they do websites through Wix, which is another site you can actually use to do your own. But they actually have people who will help you set these kinds of things up. There are tons of other sources out there you can go with. This is the one that came off the top of my head. You just have to Google it. But if you want to find somebody who actually builds it for you, just know that these will be more costly, but you don't have to worry about any of the techno code, blah, 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 etc., or the upkeep as much. But if you're like me and you like to pretty much do it all yourself, there are other, even cheaper options. As you can see through this, it's actually a pretty nice layout. I've got my blog going on here. I've got followers over here. I have all of these different pages you can actually look at. And believe it or not, this is actually through Blogger. Blogger has this cool thing that actually will allow you to create individual pages, as you can see on the tab right over here. And you can manage them, edit them in a pretty easy to use format right here, even if you don't know any type of InDesign or anything like that for whatever. And it's actually pretty easy to use. The technical part goes in if you're going to try and plug in an actual domain name specific to whatever it is you want for your website. Otherwise, you're going to end up with whatever host it is. In this case, it's Blogger. And it would be something like blogger.karlie.com as opposed to my domain name, which you see over here. But as you can see, you can add all kinds of different pages here. And you can have hidden pages and not hidden pages. Here's your area to put all of your blog posts, updates, etc., which I actually use as my newsletter. That's a totally different subject for a totally different day, but I find it easiest just to do that there and use my subscribers to the blog as my newsletter subscribers, because honestly, I find it cheaper that way. But you can play with the layout here, with different gadgets, the nav bar, and most of it is pretty user intuitive. Blogger's pretty good about that. It's pretty straightforward. You don't have to know HTML code or any of that. Like I said, the most difficult part comes if you are actually going to add in any of your things like the custom domain name, reflecting it to wherever your domain name is hosted. Okay, now, before we get too crazy sauce about everything, you will want to figure out what domain name you want. GoDaddy has this great place where you can search for domain names to see if they're actually currently available or not, and you can actually purchase the domains with their different ending, like .com, .net, LLC, TV, shop. Those ones are the hotter trending ones. .com's been around forever, but definitely still available, especially if nobody has used the domain name you want to use. Now, as an author, it is probably best to go with something that actually reflects the name you've chosen to use as your author name. Whether it's your real name or a pseudonym, whichever your fancy is, John Hancock, whatever, blah, blah, blah you want to call it. If you can, use that as your domain name so it's a lot easier for any fans of your work to actually find you. I wouldn't, for example, say, I'm going to use the title of the first book I ever wrote and published and this obscure blah, 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 and that's going to be what I'm going to... No. While it may be cute and wonderful and all that at the time, it will actually have long-term consequences, especially if nobody actually recognizes you wrote that book way back in whenever. So it's best to actually use the name you choose to use as your author name, as your domain name, if you can. Now, there are some authors out there who actually do have names similar enough that it might be a problem. So doing a domain search certainly helps. So GoDaddy, like I said, they do domain names. They also do web hosting and websites. And I honestly don't do much with them myself, but WordPress is one of the ones that they host. And they're pretty good with the whole building a website stuff, but this is a little more advanced than your basic blogger type of website. So keep that in mind. If you're more savvy, give WordPress a go. If not, stick with Blogger or one of the others that I'm actually going to talk about in a minute. Wix I haven't used myself, but I hear it's pretty user-friendly. But GoDaddy, I primarily use for searching for web domains. You can actually do a Google search, but I would personally suggest doing it on one of those private tabs so that it doesn't get tracked, because there are people out there who will see, oh, somebody searched this domain name. We're going to register it and force you to buy it from us if you want it. It may not be as prominent at the present moment, but it has happened in the past, so keep that in mind. But make sure whatever domain name you use for your online home is something that people will be able to easily associate with you and your books. Okay, the one that I like to use for actual hosting my domain name is Weebly. It's probably not the cheapest one you can actually use, but it's a thing. And you can have multiple different websites they have there. But like I said, if you don't actually purchase the hosting from them or the domain name, it will pop up as weebly.whatever, blah, 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 until you actually purchase the domain name. There's nothing wrong with it. There are plenty of indie authors out there who do that. This is for something that I used to do a long time ago before I was actually married, but it's no longer a thing because I don't do it anymore. But somebody else has apparently bought the domain name since then, and that's whatever. But if you do decide to actually do something with Weebly, they are pretty easy to use. And it's totally okay if you want to use the free thing. Just know that it will put some kind of advertisement for their thing on there. So keep that in mind. This one was actually kind of started for one of my books, The Unknown Elf. I'm just kind of give you a quick idea of what it looks like to actually edit through theirs. I mean, you have pretty easy stuff. You can just kind of drag and drop. Oh, hey, I want slideshows. It's almost so user-friendly, it's hard to mess up. And even if you do, you can actually go back and get rid of it. I mean, there's all kinds of fun things you can add. Forms for newsletters, like I just did there. If you don't want it, you just say, delete it, it's gone. Add a gallery, title, text. It's all pretty easy to actually use. WordPress, like I said, is more of your intermediate to more difficult. And if you want to go super pro level, then you go and you write your own code, which, whatever. Wix, like I said, I think is pretty user-friendly. I haven't used it myself, so can't help you out much there. But there are some basic things that you do need for your website. You're going to need a landing page. For me, it has my blog and subscribing to the mailing list, all the fun and pertinent little things. You can go and look back at different blogs, and you can look and see who all follows. You will want a page for your author bio so that you can have your long bio, which, is still under 300 to 500 words tops, usually under 300. And then if you want to throw in some random facts, feel free to go in with that. I would suggest having a page for your books to actually showcase your books and add links pertinent to where they can buy your books. As you can see here, I have a lot of books, and I have children's books and books that aren't for kids, per se, young adults. And technically speaking, I could go in and make 2 separate pages, one for my young adult books and one for my children's books, which I haven't done yet because I've had a lot of other stuff going on. Now, if you are doing anything with other things, you want to have some kind of announcements page, so you have like events that you've got going on, your releases, cover reveals, those kinds of things. Highly, highly encourage a contact page as your staid, tried and true, so that if you want people to be able to contact you, they can. Can find you, to follow you on your social medias, etc. Mine needs to be updated like nobody's business, but you're going to want your home landing page, the books, your author bio, and contact at a minimum for your pages. For me, I also have an author visit page for information on if schools, book fairs, festivals, etc. want to actually have me as an author come visiting. Like I said, I already have that announcement page. I also have an events calendar that is currently blank because I have not much going on for this month. And I also have audio dramas that I did of my books that I have links to. So if you have things like that, you can totally add things like that. And then, of course, this podcast, which has various links there, and I need to update that. And I also link to one that I do separately for reviews, so it's not actually part of my author website, but totally separate, but still link to it. And these, I just help other authors out. And that's another thing. If you have any websites and things like that, or newsletters, etc., and you have fellow indie authors who want help promoting their book, help them out, because they're more likely to help you out. That being said, author websites, super, super important to have that online thing. And if you don't have that online presence, at least make a page on social media so people can find you. Facebook, True Social, whatever, MeWe, etc. out there, so that your fan base has a place that they can come and check for updates and stuff. And make sure you actually post things every now and again. I try to post something once a month or more if possible, depending on how things are going. But it helps for people to actually be able to see, oh, you're not just sitting there in limbo doing nothing. Do character interactions, do anything else that you might possibly think of, and you can link them to your books and things like that. Some of my things, I actually have free chapters you can click to read, or character introductions, various fun little extra things that might help you sell your books. This one is for my novel Cass, and it's just little character sketches of each of the characters, their kind of background, quotes, who they are, blah, 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 etc., and what their kind of personal philosophy is in everything. So these are fun things you can add to your website, especially if you choose to go the option that you have more control of everything. Otherwise, if you have somebody else build it for you, you might have to go through that person continually to try and add on more details and more things, depending on how things are set up. So take that into consideration when looking at making your home on the internet with your own actual domain name. And it's totally cool to actually get more than just the .com, the .net. If you have the money for it, see, .net, make sure that it actually will direct you to your main website. So even if they get the ending of it wrong, .com, .net, blah, blah, whatever, it will direct them directly to your page. There are ways to do it. I might be able to squeeze in a tutorial of how to do it later. It's been such a hot, long minute. I'm not entirely 100% sure if I remember how, but I'm sure there are plenty of videos online if necessary. But if you can afford it, buy the domain names and have them redirect to your main website so that all roads lead to Jericho, in a manner of speaking. That way you get more presence, more everything, and that is a good thing, because more presence means you're more easily discovered. I hope you learned something new today about websites and why they're important, some places you can go, some options you have. There are so many more out there than what I could even possibly even dig up on Google or whatever your favorite website search engine is. It's just a matter of looking and seeing what works for you. So just know that that's something that's probably a good thing to have. And honestly, I would start with that before you even hit that publish button. Go for getting that done when you're in the editing of your draft, so that you can get that and start building hype for your book and can start building that metadata that Google uses to find your website. And then share it with people so that people can start finding it and clicking it, and that helps build your presence. So, websites, super important. And like I said, I hope you learned something new and useful with this. If you can do it yourself, great. If not, look for the resources. I am Karlie with Dragon Key Press, and I hope to see you next time.